In the beginning was the Word. And God said, "Let there be light."
Most in the West are familiar with the Christian concept, in the beginning was the Word. God spoke the Word and the world into existence. What most don't realize is that, for example, in ancient Egypt, they taught the same thing. There was Ptah, the god of technology, who went into his heart and felt the world and then spoke it into existence.
Almost universally, ancient texts and traditions have always placed sound at the core of not only our existence, but the existence of the entire universe. And it begins with the powerful seed syllable, the ancient Om, which originally was never spoken, but it was felt in the body. And this is where the relationship between sound and vibration becomes very important, because ultimately sound is only a vibration brought into an audible range.
In the Hindu tradition, the word was with Brahman, and the word was Brahman. The very first Hebrew letter, Aleph, which starts the whole process, is also like an out-breath. It's like, Aleph, it's a sound. The sound is like the expression of the thought from that universal mind, or that divine source. The thoughts being expressed out through the sound, which then manifests material universe, material world.
When we come over into the Americas, the Pueblo Indians talk about the spider, how she sang the world into existence.
In Aztec mythology, the god Quetzalcoatl used a conch shell to create the vibration that formed the first wave of life. The Inuit say, "The raven made the world and the waters with the beat of his wings."
So it seems that no matter where we go or what time period, there's a belief that sound was fundamental to creation.
And equally remarkable, our own genesis as human beings may well have started in a similar way.
When that embryo becomes less than a millimeter in size, right? Very close to a millimeter, but not quite a millimeter, the embryo already starts to develop the first aspects of the inner ear. So the very first sense organ that is developed within the embryo is the inner ear.
But then at 16 to 24 weeks, the neurodevelopment has taken place to a point where all my 5 senses come online, except my eyes are closed and I'm in the dark, and my nose and mouth are filled with fluids, so those aren't active. But sound travels through water 5 times better than through air. So my total experience when I'm in the womb is hearing and vibration sense.
That sound coming in to the fetus, to the embryo, is essential for the development of the fetus. The mother's voice, as well as voices and sounds from the environment outside, the language that is spoken by the mother, by the father, those things are being heard by that developing fetus. And as they're coming in through its own ears, it's wiring its nervous system. There are 3 times as many connections from the ears to the brain as there are from the eyes to the brain. So the sounds coming in through the ears feed the neurological system. The auditory nerve directly connects to every organ in the body.
It's like we're baptized in sound and vibration. and water. And we all have our own mini evolution that takes place. We all have our own Big Bang. In the beginning was the void, and all of a sudden there's an explosion of me.
Those sounds that it continues to hear and learn develop its perceptions, it develops personality, it develops the way the mind thinks based on the language they speak, and so forth.
The Gnostics believed that it was our soul that manifests our physical body. Our physical body is made in the image of God, and its purpose ultimately is a vehicle for the soul as it moves its way through this matrix.
Sound is the first sense to develop in the womb and the last sense to go when we die. Many ancient cultures had practices for midwiving birth and death, using sound, music, spoken or sung prayers, knowing the importance of these critical thresholds.
That's very powerful because then that means that hearing and sound must be coming directly from source, and that perhaps sound as the first sense is the way that we can most directly connect with source.
Many traditions around the world use symbols, instruments, and songs to express their origins. In the Gnostic tradition, existence is represented as a circle with a dot in the center. Countless lines radiate from the dot. The periphery is considered to be the underworld, actually our waking life, also known as the dream of separation. The lines connecting to the center represent a state closer to who we really are. The center point represents our core existence, which we can connect to in deep sleep.
The Aboriginals, whose name means essentially in the beginning, are the oldest living culture on Earth. They've been playing the didgeridoo for at least 150,000 years.
And what they do is they take this root and they hollow it out and they make it into almost like a bugle. The tones and the frequencies that come out of it are spaced out in a way that actually encode information.
And they say that the sound of the didgeridoo connects us to the dream time, where the ancestors reside, and where we come from before birth, and where we go after we die.
Australian Aborigines speak of song lines, or song paths, that were sung by their primordial ancestor spirits, who walked across the landscape, singing its landforms into being. For the Aborigines, these songs are ongoing and need to keep being sung.
Song lines are vibratory paths that exist in a kind of parallel dimension that the Aboriginals use to navigate over vast territories and to gain knowledge.
It wasn't until I took a trip to Tibet and went into a number of the monasteries high in the Himalayas that I began to understand the mystical secret of sound and its relationship to creation. What I saw were series of mandalas that were placed on the walls. And the monks told me, this is the secret. And I said, well, what does that mean? How does it work? And he said, a long time ago, we had no way to record sound. But we know that if we project sound into matter, it will create a pattern. So what you see on the temple walls are the patterns that are reminding the monks and the nuns that if they create a very specific sound to match that pattern, then they are reproducing the sound of their ancestors.
Many ancient cultures put a sacred or special value on song and the spoken word.
When we're talking about words, we're talking about spelling, and so we're talking about casting spells. That's why they call it spelling. And so words have power. The ancients really knew this, so they chose their words very, very carefully. Words were really handpicked because they understood the power of words.
There was a time, not long ago, where humans could say, "My word is as good as gold," and it was as good as a signed contract. The power to create with language comes from absolute coherence, alignment, and integrity between what we think, say, and do.